The Aztec Empire today is portrayed most commonly as a bloodthirsty population that cut off the hearts of its enemies as a sacrifice to the gods. A downfall of this short-lived empire came with the arrival of Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez and his men, who defeated the powerful empire with native allies and superior weapons. But what if this conquest never took place? First, examine the story of how the Aztecs were conquered. The Aztecs originated from hunter-gatherers of some type of nomadic peoples from northern Mexico and began to become a powerful force in the early 13th century. 2 centuries later, they had conquered many of the central Mexico city-states and were a force to be reckoned with. However, in March of 1518, Hernan Cortez was sent by the governor of Cuba to investigate Mexico. Cortez founded the port city of Veracruz, drilled his troops, then marched with about 400 men into Mexico with Malinche, a native woman, to translate. Since there was instability in the Aztec Empire at the time of Cortez's arrival, he could make alliances with native peoples such as the Aztecs. On November 8, 1519, Cortez entered the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Montezuma, the emperor of the Aztecs, believed that the conquistador's arrival was prophesied, and that Cortez was possibly the envoy of the god Quetzalcoatl. Cortez and his men took Montezuma hostage, essentially took control of the city. Cortez fought off a rival Spanish general, but on June 30th, on La Noche Triste, Aztecs fought back ferociously, and many soldiers drowned in Lake Texcoco, weighed down by their armor. Montezuma died in the violence that followed. In May 1521, with their indigenous allies, Cortez and his men finally won a 3-month siege to the capital, and the empire fell. So how could a few Spanish conquistadors defeat one of the largest cities in the world at that time, and a powerful empire? First, the Spanish had many indigenous allies who were hostile to the Aztecs and saw the conquistadors as a way to defeating their enemies. The Aztecs were known for slaughtering prisoners of war and ritual sacrifices to the gods, and this might not have been the best way to win favor of rival groups. Thus, a period of instability was happening at the time of Cortez's arrival. The arrival of Cortez only worsened the situation, and his thousands of native allies provided crucial aid to the Spanish. Also, disease had devastated the ranks of the Aztecs, with the smallpox epidemics in 1519 and 1520 killing 5.8 million of the Aztecs out of a total population of 25 million people. Combined with the fact that the Europeans had superior weapons than those of the Aztecs, it seems almost inevitable that Cortez would defeat the Aztecs. But there were a number of ways in which he could have been defeated. The first and most practical way for a possible Aztec victory is if they had been on good terms with the other tribes. Let's say that the Aztecs do not engage in ritual killings and demand less tribute from their member states than they did in our timeline. Without the alienation of local groups, they did not side with the conquistadors and instead rallied with the Aztecs. The sheer number alone would be enough to defeat the Spanish if the Emperor Montezuma were to raise a large force and crush the conquistadors once he got news of them. In our timeline, he made the crucial mistake of allowing the Spanish into the capital and giving them gifts of gold, increasing the greed even more. In this alternate one, the Aztec king does not make this grave mistake, and attacks when his population is still relatively disease-free and strong. Faced with the sheer number of native fighters, the superior weapons of Cortez would do him little good. So what would the results be after such an effect? Well, disease will still eventually rack the Aztec population, and they will be greatly weakened. Even if there was some sort of alliance between the Aztecs and their neighbor groups, there will be likely some chaos and power grabs in the years following the defeat of Cortez. Since the Aztec Empire was a group of separate city-states under a central government, with the capital incapacitated from disease and infighting, we could see succession attempts. In our timeline, it was the powerful Spanish government that held the existing Aztec system in place. If some of these groups were to take hold of Spanish weapons and armor, the chaos would only be amplified even more, and the empire further collapses into disarray. Since Cortez had burned his ships at Veracruz to make sure that his men followed him into battle, there would be essentially no survivors of the Spanish expedition if things were to go wrong. However, after months of no news, the governor of Cuba, Diego Velázquez, will send troops to investigate. In our timeline, Velázquez had wanted to personally invade Mexico, according to some accounts, as it would bring him glory, fame, and wealth. However, Cortez ignored this wish and instead led the invasion himself. Velázquez had even tried to kill or detain Cortez in our timeline, so with him gone, he would likely send in more troops, with him at the helm. This will likely occur a few months to a year after the failed expedition of Cortez. By now, the Aztecs are weak from infighting and disease, and whatever ammunition they had is long gone. With no facilities to manufacture these technologies, they would have to resort to their previous weapons and would likely be defeated by Velasquez. So, it would be Velasquez who conquers the Aztecs instead of Cortez. Other than that, there will be no other major effects, sadly. The European colonization of the Aztecs was inevitable, mainly due to the aspect of disease. Now, if the Aztecs were impervious to the old world diseases, that is another material entirely.